Okay, I think we're all here, so do you want to do attendance, I guess, Jen, before we go in camera? All right.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 25th Council meeting. I'm Jennifer Connor, Clerk of Ramara Township. I'll begin with roll call of council. Mayor Clark,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Bell,
Present.
Councillor Snutch,
Present.
Councillor Fisher,
Present.
Councillor Tuyu,
Present.
and Councillor Bell.
Present.
Back to you, Your Worship.
This
Okay.
meeting is being streamed live on the Township of Ramara YouTube channel. Be advised that by attending a public meeting of the Council of the Township of Ramara, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and will form a part of the public record. The chair, CAO, and/or clerk have the discretion and authority to terminate or interrupt the live streaming in exceptional circumstances where the content of debate is considered inappropriate to be published. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion now to go in camera. I don't have the actual motion on. Oh, yeah, that we enter closed session in accordance with section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act, personnel matters about an identifiable individuals. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Snutch, so we go in camera at 6:35 PM. All in favor? That is carried. Just, oh. Okay, looks like we're live, so I will go to my clerk for roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Mayor Clark,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Bell,
Present.
Counselor Snatch,
Present.
Counselor Fisher. Present. Counselor Tuyu
Present.
and Counselor Bell.
Present.
All present, your worship.
Thank you. Do you have our recording going again or no? We've already done that, so I'm going to start and I'm going to ask council to stand up and join me for a moment of silence. We lost one of our volunteers Saturday night. Diane Bell passed away, so. Okay, thank you, council. Diane has been a volunteer in our Udney board for several years now, but prior to that, she was the school board trustee for this area for many, many, many years until she decided to retire. She volunteered in Bruce Stanton's office so often that he saw the value in her and actually offered her a job. And her first answer to him was, well, I don't want full time. And I believe what he told her is you work the hours you want to work. So I know she worked for Bruce and as well as our MP Adam Chambers, and she'll be dearly missed. But many, many hours of volunteering, especially for children and youth programs. So my heart goes out to her husband, Rob, and to her son and with the family. None of the details are out yet as far as what home, but it was Saturday night. She passed away with a long struggle with cancer. In fact, she was the reason I wore the pink. She asked me to wear the pink shirt on breast cancer days. So no, Diane was a dear friend and she will be missed by many people in this township. That's all I had for opening remarks. Any member of council at any events or nothing? No? Councillor Tuyu.
I attended the Kuchiching Conservancy AGM a few weeks ago. MP Adam Chambers was there as well as renowned Indigenous author Wab Geshig Rice, who read a portion of his book, Moon of the Crested Snow. It was a really great time and nice to see all of the great work they're doing on their 30th anniversary.
Thank you. Any other members? Okay, with that, I guess, Madam Clerk, I'll go back and do the motions from our in camera. So. Oh, sorry, Zach, CAO update, almost breezed right by you. I've still got Diane in my brain, so I'm sorry.
Not a problem, Mayor. So I just wanted to remind the public, the Township Administration Building and other facilities will be closed Friday, March 29th and Monday, April 1st for the Easter weekend. On April 1st, we're also launching our second annual community cleanup initiative to support Earth Day, which is on April 22nd. So this is a month-long initiative, and more information can be found on our website. The Ward 4 by-election takes place on May 13th. Voting will be available online, by telephone, and in person. I believe that will start May 6th. Yes. And that's it for me, Mayor.
One thing I should have announced was a local immigration partnership was here today from Simcoe County, and Councillor Tuyu and Councillor Fisher and myself and many of the staff. Oh, and Chair, we're here, and many of the staff. We took part in the picture, and this is part of our It Starts campaign. And our greeting was in Mandarin. I believe that I don't ask me to remember what it was that we said, but it meant welcome. and they're going around the different townships in Simcoe County and recording this message, which will be all part of that campaign. And I remember last year we ran this, we had 1.5 million hits. No, 5 million hits on this campaign. So it's very, very popular. So with that, now I will go back and do the motions. That council rise and report from closed session. We did. That council received report AD 0724 and that Ian Brown be appointed as the Township of Ramara's community representative to the Kuchiching OPP Detachment Board for a term commencing on April 1st, 2024 and expiring on November 14th, 2026, and that Councillor Snutch be appointed as the Township of Ramara's community representative to the Kuchiching OPP Detachment Board for the term commencing April 1st, 2024 and expiring November 14th, 2026. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Tuyu. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next, I have that the closed session minutes dated February 26, 2024 be adopted as presented. Moved by Counselor Snutch, second by Counselor Fisher. All in favor? That is carried. Lastly, that we receive report CD 0824 as information. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Counselor Fisher. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We've done our roll call remarks. Adoption of agenda, that the council agenda dated March 25th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Fisher, second by Counselor Bell. Counselor Tuyu. Deputy Mayor Bell, sorry.
I just wanted to, at this time, if it's appropriate, to request that we pull the first bylaw item for discussion at the time.
So we can pull out that bylaw and have a separate motion for that one? Okay, any others on the bylaws or any other changes? So then I'd ask for approval of the, if that's okay with the mover and seconder, I'd ask for approval of the agenda as amended. Get the nod. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Just gotta move ahead here. Opening forum regarding agenda items. So anything on the agenda, sir, you'd like to speak on for 1 minute? Yes. Yeah, no, anybody can speak on something on the agenda tonight. On the bylaw. So you're here to see that. I take it you're in support of a change to the bylaw? Okay, thank you. Any other, do we have it? Nothing online? I don't think. So then we would go on to adoption of council minutes. That the council meeting minutes dated February 26, 2024 be adopted as presented. Moved by Counselor Fisher, second by Counselor Tuyu. Any issues rising from the minutes? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. And that the special council meeting minutes dated March 4th, 2024 be approved as presented. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Counselor Snutch. Any issues from those minutes or business arising? All in favor? That is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, any member of council? See any? We have no motions of which notice has been previously given. So presentations and receiving of deputations, and I believe we do have two this evening. So the first one is food cycle science. So Jacob Hannon, okay.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I will, I guess since the screen is being shared over there, I will just make prompts to shift to the next slide when the time comes. Just want to start by saying thank you very much, Mayor and councilors and members of staff for hosting me tonight. I hope that at least myself or our company are a familiar face for you as we have frequented many of the municipal trade shows like AMO and FCM. And yeah, really happy to be here this evening to just speak a bit more about the Food Cycler program, which has been growing quite a bit in Canada and in Ontario over the past several years here. I want to start the presentation off by saying that I'm aware that Simcoe County manages your garbage, recycling, and organics. So keep in mind as I go through the presentation that if this is a program that you are interested in for your residents, we are happy to pursue it as an environmental initiative through the township, or I can connect with the county to see if they would support bringing this type of program to the township. If we can move on to the next slide, that would be great. So just to briefly speak a little bit about who we are as a company to start. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company. We're based out of Ottawa, and we are focused on food waste diversion solutions. We started back in 2011 and since then have branched off to commercial solutions, educational solutions, and then the reason that I'm here is to speak about our municipal solutions. So while we do sell our innovative technology, which is the Food Cycler, at the retail level across North America and the world, within Canada specifically, our municipal team works with municipalities to either help them divert their organic waste from the landfill, increase participation in existing organics programs, or implement food cycler programs as an environmental initiative. Next slide, please. So we are partnered with 130 Canadian municipalities. We're across 9 provinces and 2 territories. I believe we're in almost 20% of Ontario municipalities. And when we started these municipal programs back in 2020, they were really successful in small, rural, remote, and especially northern communities. And then we found over the past 4 years that a lot of communities, whether they're small and rural, whether they're cottage country or they're denser cities, there are a lot of residents in these places who aren't necessarily putting their organics in a green bin or in a backyard composter. And we found that by having an additional option for them, it's a really good way to increase participation and to really maximize getting organics out of the garbage. Next slide, please. So I won't speak too much on the issue with food waste. I think we can all agree that it is a part of our garbage stream that is quite avoidable. And while there are options out there that I've kind of touched on here, unfortunately, a lot of people still put their food waste in the garbage. And this can make up to 50% of that household waste once you separate out recycling. It's a very costly, avoidable problem to have. And we obviously want to try to get this out of our garbage stream. Next slide, please. So the different impacts that kind of come with putting food waste in the garbage as a municipality or at the county level even. When we look at landfills, they are filling up quite quickly. The landfill, I guess, crisis is a real thing in Canada right now, and we want to keep as much waste out of our landfills as we can, using as many methods as possible. In the environmental side of things, when we do landfill organic waste, it ends up in an environment there where it's squished between tons and tons of garbage, doesn't have the proper access to oxygen it needs to break down. And when it does break down in that anaerobic environment in the landfill, it produces methane gas, which is very harmful to the environment. And then lastly, just when we look in our communities, especially when we do look in some of the more rural areas, having food waste in the garbage, it attracts animals. It's quite unpleasant for humans to deal with. And if residents are self-hauling or they have to purchase bag tags or things like that, having an avoidable amount of food waste going to your garbage, it's not ideal for people in our communities. Next slide, please. So when we just quickly look at the different options here that we do have available, obviously green bins and curbside organic collection is quite successful in a lot of densely populated areas, but we find in even some of our larger townships and cities that have curbside collection, not everybody's serviced by it. There are challenges that come with having green bin programs. You're putting more trucks on the road. A lot of times apartment buildings and some of the more rural areas are not serviced by them, which can, I guess, just cause a bit of an inequality issue there where some residents do get the service and others don't. When we look at backyard composting, it is great. It would be great if everybody could do it, but unfortunately not everybody does or can, especially with our harsh winters here. It's not always effective throughout about half the year. And then lastly, landfilling organic waste, touched on all the issues there. It's something we want to try to avoid as much as we can. Next slide, please. So I typically have a video that I play here. I don't think it went through with the PDF I had sent, and that's okay. We'll just skip along to the next slide here. So in case you aren't familiar with what the food cycler is, these are the 2 models that we implement in our municipal programs. Biggest difference is just the size capacity. So both machines are about a cubic foot in the actual size of them. The FC30 on the left there has a 2.5 liter capacity, while the Eco 5 has a 5 liter capacity. In our municipal programs, residents choose which machine they want, which is best suited to their household or the size of their household. And essentially what they do is they get a food cycler in their home. We put in some grant funding and some federal funding that we have for these municipal programs. And residents are then managing their organic waste right at home. Essentially, the food cyclers can take about 95% of your daily food scraps, things like meat, bones, fish, poultry, typical fruit and veggie scraps. About 95% of your daily mix, and it reduces it down by about 90%. If we go to the next slide here, please. So about 90% of your food waste is typically liquid, and that's something where within the machine, it dehydrates out that liquid, it grinds up the food waste, and it turns it into what's actually a nutrient-rich byproduct. So that byproduct can actually be integrated right into your garden, put into a compost system or compost bin. It can go into the green bin as well, and it's not smelly, it's not wet, it's just dry and odorless. Typically with the food cycler, it's about an 8-hour cycle for the machine to do its thing. Most people run it overnight. It's a low electricity consuming device as well, quite energy efficient. And we'll shift to the next slide here, please. When we look at that byproduct, we list these options for the residents in our programs because at the end of the day, we don't want it to end up in the landfill. Whether it's processed through a food cycler or in its raw form, food waste in the landfill is just not what we want. So these are just some options on what residents can do with that byproduct. While most do add it to their garden soil or to a backyard composter, it can also be donated to local farmers or community gardens, local compost sites, or added to a green bin as well. Next slide, please. And just to briefly look at kind of that economic impact, when you compare the food cycler and the food cycler program to the more traditional waste management method, a lot of moving parts with that traditional method. Trucks on the road are never a positive thing, emitting more CO2 while trying to collect and transport our waste. There's labor, there's different maintenance aspects, but with the food cycler, it is quite a very simple process for residents. And if they weren't using their green bin or a backyard composter, they don't have access to those, it's a really great solution for them. Next slide, please. And we'll skip ahead to the next one here, actually, if that's okay. Thank you. So within our municipal programs, I mentioned we're partnered with 130 Canadian municipalities. Out of those, we've had over 50 of them complete pilot programs, and over 6,000 residents have provided feedback in an exit survey that we provide to them. I'm just going to touch on a few of the bits of feedback and statistics here that we have. So from these 6,000 plus residents, 98% of them report that they're going to keep using their food cycler moving forward as their solution for food waste. It's a really great number to see. I don't think any curbside program has that type of participation rate. And so it's really encouraging to see that residents are really enjoying using that machine as their food waste solution, whether it's on its own or to complement things like backyard composters and other methods. And then I guess the last one I'll touch on is just the bottom one there, that awareness and prevention. A lot of times with kind of the more traditional programs, when we do just put our waste in the bin and take it outside and it's out of sight, out of mind, and someone else out there can deal with it. With the food cycler program, when residents are managing their food waste right at home, they're a lot more aware of how much waste they're creating in the first place. So we find that there's been a lot of behavior change with the program as well, where 77% of residents are resolving to waste less food in the first place because they're just a lot more aware of how much avoidable waste they were creating. Next slide, please. So I'll just briefly touch on this, and then I think I just have 2 more slides before I wrap up. We have federal funding that goes towards the programs. We'll see it in a couple slides in the subsidy and cost structured slide. But essentially, we're part of Impact Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge. It's a federally run challenge through Impact Canada and Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada. And essentially, we've been tasked with finding more Canadian municipalities to help them divert their food waste. So we have this grant funding. It's going directly to help subsidize these programs, and any municipalities that partner with us will have the right of first refusal on subsequent funding if they'd like to continue a program or expand a program further. Next slide, please. So this is what the traditional pilot program looks like. If you look at programs that are in across Peterborough County and some of the lower tiers, or Bruce County, for example, this is the structure that they've gone through. So essentially, residents will purchase a food cycler at the subsidized rate. They'll use it for 12 weeks, and we give them a really nice resident package that includes a tracking sheet. And on that tracking sheet, they essentially just check a box every time they use their food cycler. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, we send them that exit survey that I had spoken about, and they can report their usage, which we can then turn into how much diversion is happening per household and per year. And they provide other feedback of the program as well. We put that all into a nice package, into a nice report and presentation, and present that back to you to show you the success of the program, and then look at perhaps applying for grants for expansions of the program or expanding it to more households. Next slide, please. And this is the funded pilot program subsidy structure. So if we look at that top line there, that's the retail price that you would find on the Vitamix website or on Amazon to get the machine. We put in our own municipal discount as well as that Impact Canada federal investment. And then the municipal subsidy, which in some areas comes from the municipality, and others it comes from the county. And some it comes from a combination of both. That's $100 per household. And then the resident chips in that final amount of $150 or $300. And we find that this structure, everyone kind of has some skin in the game. The resident is invested. If they're putting a bit of money into it, they're going to use their machine and they're going to divert their food waste through it. The municipality is invested in the success of the program, and we have that federal funding in there as well. Next slide, please. The second last one before I wrap up, just to kind of give an overview of what the cost of the program is, depending on the scope. Minimum is 50 households. That would be at the $100 per household municipal or county subsidy. That would be a $5,000 total cost plus shipping and tax. And that includes our team helping with registration and promotion and customer service. And we're really here every step of the way throughout the program. And that's all just baked into that $100 per household cost. And we found that this has just been a really successful program over the last 4 years, and especially over the last 2 here, where we really increased the number of programs and municipal partners. If we just skip the next slide, that would be great. So I'm just going to wrap up here. I believe you have the package on your end, and the slide I skipped there just has some benefits of the program that you may want to look at after the presentation. But essentially, I'm just asking you to receive this presentation as information. I know we've spoken with a few of you at the trade shows, and it sounded like there's some interest in us bringing the information forward. If there is interest in pursuing a partnership and bringing the program to the township, we're happy to work with staff to bring it as an environmental or sustainability initiative. Otherwise, we're happy to also be referred to the county and see if this is something that they would like to implement alongside some of the other waste services as well. So all that being said, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the presentation. Really appreciate your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jacob. I'll open it up to the floor. First, Councillor to you.
Hi, Jacob. Nice to see you again. Thank you for coming. This is really interesting. I had a chance to speak to the Kincardine mayor's wife after I saw you, and they implemented the pilot program, and I only heard amazing comments from them. So it was nice to hear that real life experience. The only thing that she did mention, though, was that there were some limitations in what you can put in. Can you list what those would be?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just gonna super quickly on my end, I'll pull up my my do's and don'ts sheet here. Essentially, and I think I mentioned that, yeah, it's about 95% of your daily food scraps. While you can put in small bones, we tend to get people to avoid the thick kind of T-bone steaks, things like that, where they're just very large and dense bones, as well as the very fibrous, I guess, kind of vegetable skins in terms of corn husks, pineapple husks, where those, they wouldn't necessarily break down the mechanism, but they would just kind of become long, stringy strands. So apart from the dense bones and kind of those more leafy, dense, fibrous parts of certain fruits and vegetables, pretty much everything else can go in. And again, with corn husks, pineapple leaves, a lot of people would put those into a backyard composter anyway, just because they're not going to create smells or anything like that back there.
Again, they don't damage the product. They just won't break down the way you would like, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Any other, Councillor Snutch?
Thank you. So in other words, if somebody's already on, which is different than what we're talking about, if somebody's already on the county of Simcoe green bin program, they would need to keep the green bin as well for some of those other things, or they'd have to throw them in the garbage. So now you've got 4 things.
So essentially what we find with most of our programs, the people who have the green bin and who are happy with it, they don't typically register for the food cycler program. It's the residents who don't like their green bin. There are a lot of people who don't like the mess that's associated with it. It freezes in the winter time. Sometimes animals do get into it. So what we find with the program in places where there is existing services such as green bin programs, it gets those people who don't want to use the green bin and are just putting their food waste in the garbage. I'll just quickly touch on our Ottawa green bin program. We've had it since 2009. We only have 57% of the city actually using it, even though it's available to everybody. So to boost something like that and boost that participation from 57% for organics, other methods such as this can come into play.
Okay, 2 quick questions. How long do these machines last?
Lifespan is 7 to 10 years.
Okay. And in doing this deputation, have you talked to any staff or anybody here about how many residents in Ramara do not have access to a green bin right now? Do you know the number?
I do not. I was hoping to get that in my follow-up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Bell.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate you being here. And I obviously recognize that we do waste removal services at county as well, but I do have a large component of folks who live in condominiums and don't receive county services. So I was interested in it being here for the purpose of having the people learn about it. And then hopefully our council would support a letter to county to let them know that we have quite a few condominiums who don't receive this service. But it isn't just condominiums. We also have small businesses or other environments within the township who also don't receive waste services. So I think across the board, it would be interesting for a lot of different people. And I also would tend to agree, people that live alone, or maybe sometimes people on large rural properties don't want to go out to the green bin. So I do think there's actually a use for it across the board, across the township, and not necessarily just in condos. So I just appreciate you being here, and it's helping people to learn what the product is and how it might be used. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments.
Counselor Fisher.
Thank you, Jacob. It's good seeing you again. I just wanted to go back quickly. In your one slide number, I'm not sure, where it talks about the product family. Excuse me. And it was talking about the refillable filters. Can you just explain a little bit more and what that cost replacement would be and how long that filter would last? Like if you're using it as you're recommending, like every evening after when you go to bed at night.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I should have touched on it during the presentation, but yes. So in order to have no smells coming out of the machine, there are carbon filters in it. It's activated charcoal. Essentially, the machine operates completely fine without them, but most people prefer to have the odor control. They last between 3 and 4 months when you're running it consistently. It's about $20 for a filter change. We have some municipalities that do order the carbon filters extra in bulk and will obviously receive a bulk discount on that, and then they resell it to the residents or offer it to the residents. But we find that more so municipalities are taking us up on just us sharing our online portal link for residents. And there they can get their filter changes. There are some small discounts there too. If you team up with your neighbor and buy a year's supply, then you can get free shipping and things like that. But on average, it's about $20 per filter change, and you would change them 3 to 4 times a year if you choose to do so.
Yes, follow up. Go ahead.
Okay, that's excellent. On your website, I'm just thinking about the demographics of some of the people that live in our municipality. What type of payment options are available? Like, is it just through credit card, or is there like Google Pay or e-transfer? Like just for payment options, because we do have some people who might not have a credit card.
Yes, so it is typically through credit card, but we do deal with a large range of demographics throughout the municipality. So we are happy to take it on a case-by-case basis as well. If a resident were to just have a different preferred method of payment, we're happy to adapt and kind of just be able to take that in and yeah, not necessarily credit card. It is the most common one, but we also work with municipalities who they need to mail us a check, or they have different ways of paying it as well. And our finance team is quite flexible in terms of all that.
Okay, Counselor Tuya, go ahead.
I like the idea of knowing what's going into your compost, which would go into your garden. I know that sometimes when the opportunity comes up to get compost at the landfill transfer station, you don't necessarily know what other people have put in it. Like I know a lot of people sometimes put pet waste in their green bins, and that's not something you'd want in your garden, especially if you're pregnant or got, kids around or anything like that. So I think this is great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Keith.
Hey, Jacob, good to see you here. I've been doing this for about 30 years. It's kind of my industry, my niche. I remember when these came in, it was a gentleman named William from China. I don't know if it's the same person who provides these products to you. One of the concerns we had back then with this product was, what is the carbon and the output from the composting itself, the methane? What are you seeing? Have you done studies, air studies? Studies
are always ongoing. And I guess I will just say we are an Ottawa company, so I'm personally not sure who the William is, but we are a Canadian company. In terms of the I guess emissions during the process. So and we're very intentional with our language because a lot of our competitors call them countertop composters or kitchen composters. You can't create compost in 8 hours. It's just not possible. So with these machines, they are processing the food waste, they're eliminating the bacteria, taking out the moisture, breaking them down. But they're retaining the nutrient value in there that would relate it more to a fertilizer. So when you do put it into your garden, you want to mix it in the way you would with fertilizer. As for the process, because it's not actually breaking it down the way bacteria does and the way that it would in a long-term compost setting, there aren't emissions that are coming out of it. There's no harm with having a CO2 buildup within your home or within the cupboard that it's in or anything like that, because it is just essentially dehydrating it and grinding it down to a finer form and a form that can then break down when it's reactivated in your garden. There's no concerns about the emissions in that process.
So is there a pre-grinder? Did you say grind? So there's a pre-grinder before that?
Nope. So it's during the process. So while it's in the food cycler, it is heating it. It is grinding it down at the same time over that 8 hours. So essentially it's a heating cycle, a grinding cycle, and then a cooling cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Fisher.
Sorry, thank you. I was just thinking about wintertime in Canada. And some of the recommendations were to add them to your garden or existing compost bin. So if I were wanting to take the contents of this bin every morning and add it to my garden in the winter, like, do you have, I know it's a little bit separate, it's my own problem to have, but like, have you come up with ideas that you can offer people who use your program to say, hey, this is how you can bulk store it until the snow melts to put it into your garden? Like, is there a safe way to do it if it's being heated and dehydrated and ground up that way, and then finishes decomposition in the ground? Like, how does that now work for like through winter time?
You're asking all the right questions because that is a point that I did not make when I spoke about the byproduct in that slide. So the byproduct can be stored indefinitely as long as it's in a dry place. So in the wintertime, most residents will just have one of those orange Home Depot buckets, for example. And every time they run a cycle, they just empty the contents into that bucket, keep it in their laundry room or their garage or their basement. There's no smells that are going to come out. It's not going to attract animals. And because it's been reduced by about 90%, all the food waste that you would normally create during the winter time that would take up a lot of space in a bin or wherever it would go, you're really just getting 100 or 200 grams of that byproduct on each cycle. And then by the time the spring comes around, you have a nice bucket of fertilizer to integrate into your garden.
Councillor Tuyu.
I just had another thought. I often do nature type science projects with my children, and it just occurred to me, would this be like a really great additive to a worm farm?
Yes, that is correct. Whether it's a backyard composter, a tumbler, green cone, or a worm farm, or even an existing compost system, once it's reintegrated into those systems, it reactivates the bacteria, breaks it down. So yes, it has been used in worm farms before, and it is a good additive into there.
Thank you. Can't wait to try.
A fascinating product. A lot of interest here. Any other questions for Jacob? Well, thank you at this time, Jacob. So I've got a motion that we receive the deputation from Food Cycle Science as presented. So can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Tu. Any other comments? And at this, Councillor Fisher, go ahead.
The only comment, but I don't think we can add it during deputations, is to, and what I would hope could happen is that the conversations might be able to happen. We can also recommend that maybe county takes a look at this, or maybe I just need to put a bug in our warden's ear that perhaps he might be wanting to, if he's listening to our council meeting, he might want to invite Food Cycle to
Once
come
in a
to the
while I
county.
listen, yes. I'm looking at my clerk. What would you like to see added to that?
We could forward to the county for their information.
Yeah,
Excellent.
forwarded it.
Yeah, because there are some changes coming up when I was at the last county meeting with what they're going to be picking up from certain businesses, et cetera. Isn't that?
Well, there's a big change coming in the recycle.
Right.
One of our concerns that the provincial government's not going to pick up from businesses. So now we're going to find all that recycling now landing in our garbage stream again, because if they're not have the service, but this still has a value because as you said, you're reducing it. And when we're hauling organics down the road, as you said, 90% of what we're hauling is water. And, you know, if it can be reduced in the household, this could save time with trucking and costs as well. So Councillor Fisher.
Okay, so I know that I just asked for an amendment on this motion and perhaps maybe I need to take it one step further. Could we also get a staff report to begin our own pilot project just on the off chance that maybe county doesn't want, isn't interested at this time, right? Like I would really be interested to.
Why don't we do the staff report and from that we'll decide which direction to go. So why don't we change the motion and that staff prepare a report on this product?
That's fine.
Everybody's fine with that? And then that way, if we want to direct a letter to county, we can fashion it out of committee of the whole at that time. Okay, so that's.
Can I ask one more
Yes,
question?
go ahead.
Does anybody know how many residences do not have green bin services in Ramara Township?
I believe it's mainly our condo units and some businesses as well. So I don't have the number on the top of my head. No, I'd have to, it's something.
Yeah, we
can
do
include in
small
the report.
businesses if it'll fit in what a normal household would put out. But then any large scale, like obviously we wouldn't pick up Fern Resort because of the size. What.
So I think that's an important number in
Yeah.
the staff report.
Yes. Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, and I just know, for example, one of the numbers I just received from a resident is their waste removal, which does not include organics, battery pickup, textiles. They spend $8,000 a year and receive $1,600 from county. So just on the waste itself, and never mind this piece of it, they're already not sort of equally receiving what they should be receiving from county. So that was part of the reason I was asking for this deputation, is that I suspect some of them may even go down and do their own deputation at county if that's what's required. So yeah, definitely out of that staff report, we'll see what comes next. But there's already definitely a need to do something to help out those condominium units. And then places like our library even doesn't receive waste removal services, and then all those small businesses. So I don't know the number with including all the small businesses, but it's a substantial number of households in Ramara Township with condominiums. And we know, of course, that there's condominiums across the county. So I think there's a use for it outside of here as well. Not that I'm here to advocate for everybody else, but I am, in the sense that it's a good environmental decision to make, and that matters in every township.
Yes, I believe in the last term of council, we had some residents who wanted us to contact Simcoe to say that subsidy for the people that don't get it should have been increased, because I don't think it's been increased. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time. It's not like an annual increase.
No, it was, from what I understand, it's tied to our contract with the garbage hauler. So if that, it only gets increased at the same rate as what county's paying per household.
But we were going to look at that. So if it's only covering off 25% of the costs. Yeah.
So with that, I'll let you go. Thanks, Jacob. Very interesting. Now, would you happen to know offhand how many municipalities you have that do have an upper tier like we do, Simcoe County, that still participate in this program, even though there's an upper tier handling their garbage?
So in Ontario, we have across Haliburton County, Bruce County, and Essex County. And then within Peterborough County, we have about, I think, 6 of the lower tiers who are individually running programs, whereas the other 3 counties I mentioned, the counties have helped subsidize.
Okay. Can you get that information to our staff just for our discussion, so we know that there's others out there that we can model it by? That's kind of what I'm looking for. Okay,
Yes,
so with
absolutely.
that, on the motion I had to receive and staff prepare a report, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Jacob.
Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors and members of staff, and have a great rest of your evening.
And next I have Colin Casson, I believe, on deputation on invasive species. Is it Casson or Cason? I hope I got it right, sir.
It's Casson, but I've been called worse.
Yeah, so whenever you're ready, Colin.
Appreciate that. If we could just advance maybe the slide. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Colin Casson. I'm the policy manager of the Invasive Species Center. I come to you tonight from Peterborough, so I appreciate the time and the slot on the agenda this evening. Next slide, please. I just wanted to speak to you this evening about invasive species. The Invasive Species Center is a not-for-profit. As I say, we're based out of Sault Ste. Marie, and really we're trying to support municipalities, the province, the federal government, all members of civil society in just addressing and kind of catalyzing action around invasive species. So invasive species, if you're unfamiliar, are species that come from a farther geography. So most of our species come from Europe and Asia, areas with similar climate in the world. And unfortunately, we bring over those particular species, but we don't bring over the ecology and network around them that keep their populations in check in their home range. And so when they move from one part of the world to another, they have the potential impact of negative consequences on the environment, the economy, and society. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to give you a few kind of, what's the lay of the land on invasive species, a couple notes here, and really just speak to you to kind of underpin what's happening from a kind of province-wide lens within municipalities on invasive species. So two reasons why invasive species should matter and do matter to Ontario municipalities. The first is cost. They are very expensive. We did a survey in 2019 trying to understand just exactly how costly are they. And what we were able to come up across our 444 municipalities, we had about 111, so about 1 in 4 roughly, coming back to with responses, being gracious enough to go through their budgets and try and find line by line, where are we spending, where are we investing on invasive species? And what we're able to figure out is about $51 million in 2019 dollars per year being spent by Ontario municipalities and CAs on invasive species. And that's a wide range of species. I've got a chart there that kind of breaks it down by species. And one of the big takeaways from that was that really that spending was driven by our least favorite invasive species, emerald ash borer, at the time. The species that's been in Ontario for about 20 years has really done its damage, as you know, throughout Simcoe County on its march north and west, and also farther east into the Maritimes as well. So a species, unfortunately, we're very familiar with, and just really those costs are a massive, massive driver behind why it's a big deal. So we kind of dig a little bit deeper into that 29 data, and we look at the municipal cost alone, putting CAs aside, conservation authorities aside for a moment. And we're looking at, as the average Ontario municipality, of course, there's large variability between large and small municipalities, but on average, we're looking at just shy of $220,000 per year spent across all species. And about 50% of that spending, as I said before, was driven by emerald ash borer, but a number of other species, unfortunately, that you're familiar with in Simcoe County, things like zebra mussels, quagga mussels as well, phragmites, which I'll speak to in a little bit more detail in a moment, common buckthorn, and a number of other species. And many of these species, especially emerald ash borer, these are not these are driven by requirements more than anything. These are hazard tree removals on streets. These are liabilities in many ways that are driving the tremendous costs associated with them. And so our organization is really, really focused in here on trying to get the word out early so we can avoid the next emerald ash borer, whatever it may be, wherever it may be, whenever it should come to Ontario and inflict similar damage. And so that's the first reason, is they are costly. They are nested within municipal budgets from rural to urban communities alike across the province right now. And so just wanted to speak to that in terms of a few important numbers. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, in terms of another reason why they're costly, just in terms of our ecosystem level impacts here. So, I grew up on a street called White Ash Drive. Regrettably, it is not full of white ash anymore. Time to consider renaming. So we see these street trees like in the upper image here in terms of removal of ash and really, devastating ecosystem level impacts, be it the natural environment or the built up environment in terms of our urban forest cover as well. And another quick note in terms of Simcoe County, historically, more than 2 decades ago, what would our regional forest cover be in terms of ash before emerald ash borer showed up? About 1 in 10 trees in our urban forests were ash. Regrettably, that is not the case anymore. The number of ash remaining on the landscape are a small fraction of what they once were. Next slide, please. 2 species I wanted to put on your radar because they're both present in your region and quite important in terms of inflicting large costs to municipalities, both in other parts of the province and also outside the province. So I wanted to speak to 2, but unfortunately, there's a number of other species we could have chosen from. One species that is not widely established, that it is kind of a species of the moment in terms of an opportunity ahead of us, is a species called oak wilt. And this is a forest disease. You'll see the image on the upper right there. That black and slightly graying spore pad is what happens once an infected tree becomes infected underneath the bark. It forms these pressure cracks. That is the spores multiplying and reproducing and ultimately just pushing themselves out. So what's happened here is a technologist has kind of carved away as a good demonstration example. So we look at these fungal mats, and unfortunately what happens is naturally those pressure cracks would pop open, the bark would kind of pop off a little bit. And what would happen is native beetles regrettably would find a good meal in there, and they would go in, feed on that, and move over to the next tree. And so that's an important pathway for how oak wilt is spreading around throughout the province of Ontario. And it is kind of an interesting moment here. We are in the very, very early days of oak wilt in Ontario. Think about where emerald ash borer would have been 19 years ago. That's more or less where we stand right now. It's kind of an important and critical juncture in our battle against trying to prevent full establishment of oak wilt. In terms of local stories for you, I just wanted to put on your radar the closest population. There's only a couple of populations, three in the province of Ontario that we know about right now. One is in Springwater, so not too far away from you, about 44 minutes if we hopped in the car right now. But still within your general area. So I wanted to put it on your radar because it is a very legitimate threat to oak, all oak species, unfortunately. So if you think of your favorite oak, regrettably it has the potential to be infected by this disease once it becomes more widely established. So just wanted to put it on your radar. Some small, easy activities you could consider would be things like no pruning bylaws on oaks. Especially those on municipal property during the summer, which is when those beetles move around. It's not a silver bullet solution, but it does substantially decrease the probability of spread. So would be happy to pass on some sample bylaws of other communities who have considered taking that type of an action as a preventative measure just to slow and mitigate spread. So oak wilt, it is one that can kill oak trees, mature oak trees, 80, 90, 100-year-old trees, literally within days. 3 weeks from initial infection to tree mortality is what we've been seeing from our colleagues in Michigan. So a species, it is largely my job to move around municipalities, start the conversations as early as we can, especially those in reasonably close proximity like yours. So that's oak wilt, a species that is just here on early days. To kind of counterweight that, a species that is much more widely established but still extremely important and costly is a species called Phragmites. And it's an invasive grass, also called common reed. If you've ever driven on a road, unfortunately, you've probably seen this species. Maybe not as dense and falling over itself as you see in this image here. But it is important for a wide range of reasons. One, it blocks municipal drains and it blocks stormwater movement. So it impedes water and contributes to flooding. Two, as you can see in this image here, it has a negative impact on sightlines. And so especially in southwestern Ontario, where this plant grows very tall, we do see it linked into road hazards and other kind of important conversations outside the traditional biological and ecological arena. Ecologically, it's devastating as well. This has strong negative impacts on species at risk and biodiversity, and those wetlands, the remaining wetlands that we have that are also critical and home to many forms of biodiversity. Fortunately, once Phragmites establishes, it can strongly outcompete species, decreasing the number of species like Blanding's turtles or native turtles, native flora as well. So an important species I wanted to put on your radar, and a very costly species, Phragmites. Even municipalities that don't think that they're spending money on frag right now, absolutely, when we have deeper conversations, they do tend to realize, oh shoot, we are. And that's because this species tends to nest itself within roads and operations budget, through traditional regular ditching activities that are increasing or occurring at increased rates, among other kind of expense lines as well. So just wanted to make the note there that what we learned through our kind of when we're going around polling municipalities and trying to understand how much are you spending, it was a really kind of interesting offshoot of the conversation is that many municipalities that thought we don't have invasive species expenditures to date through a species like frag realized, oh no, these are costing us in ways that we're maybe not thinking about or considering already. Next slide, please. Two ideas that I just wanted to put on your radar in terms of small, low-cost opportunities that other municipalities are doing to address invasive species. The first is really just about kind of considering planning. Some municipalities are considering invasive species plans, invasive species strategies, just looking at opportunities to kind of have a game plan. We see some communities do is kind of a random acts of stewardship approach, address the most pressing and kind of loudest invasive species pressure, and completely understand the path that leads us to that. But just would encourage municipalities, and I do all the time, to consider, what are your top priority species? Are there just one or two or three species that are top priorities for you that you could consider? Maybe you're already working on species, but oak wilt and Phragmites are two good ones I just wanted to note. And the other thing is sometimes we find a really easy zero cost opportunity would just be assigning a point person on priority species, whatever they might be. So new species like oak wilt, just having someone within their work plan consider that they own the species and are up to date on the knowledge. Is it still in spring water? Has it migrated a little bit closer? So just someone with that kind of on their perspective, because many large work plans sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, and these species move very quickly. And then the second point here I just wanted to make is low-hanging fruit is still just as tasty. So I did want to do a quick plug. We have a couple of granting programs that are available to municipalities, conservation authorities as well, and all green groups as well. If there's an environmental advisory committee that might find a priority project looking for a few extra dollars. So we do have the Invasive Species Action Fund. It's about 2.5 weeks away from closing. It is a very light effort application, so I did want to do a little plug for that. We designed this granting program in mind, thanks to the provinces through MNR, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry's investment, with trying to make it as light and applicant friendly as we can possibly get it. And many municipalities took advantage of it last year, so I did want to put it on your radar. And then the second granting program we operate is Phragmites specific. We haven't announced the launch date yet, but if you would look to our website in less than a month's time, you might find some interesting information there. And that is an important resource. That fund in particular, the Phragmites Fund, last year was supporting projects up to $10,000 per project. We're looking to hopefully increase that cap this year. So, it's not going to solve all the problems out there, but if you're interested in kind of taking a next step in terms of formalizing an effort on a species like Phragmites, it would be a great kind of leverage point. And I should note as well, just in terms of dollars and cents and what's on the table, the Invasive Species Action Fund is supporting projects as high as $50,000 in the upcoming year. So that would be projects that are happening this summer, this fall, and the upcoming winter as well, be they control-based work, monitoring work, and everything in between. So I did want to take advantage of that because I think municipalities are challenged to find ways to fund this kind of important work. And so I just wanted to provide two small solutions that can help gain a little bit of momentum in that space. Next slide, please. With all that said, contact information available here, and I wanted to thank you for fitting me in on a busy agenda. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you, Colin. Do I have any questions from council? Councillor Tuyu.
Hi, Colin. Nice to see you again. Thank you for taking me up on my invitation. What I'm just wondering, I enjoyed your forum, but I just had a few questions I needed to ask you about oak wilt. Would it stand to reason that, because it's not as easy to identify as, say, for example, Phragmites, that there would be a more higher activity of like woodpeckers on the oak wilt trees because of the beetles that are accessing through the spots?
It's a great question. We did see a higher rate with respect to emerald ash borer about 15 years ago when and 10 years ago when emerald ash borer really took hold throughout Simcoe County. There was a response to the bird community, so that was actually an easy way to pick up emerald ash borer infested trees, was looking around. The thing with the nitidulid beetles or the picnic beetles, they're a native beetle, and they're just the carrier of oak wilt, unfortunately. They're very tiny. They're almost microscopic, the size of a sesame seed. So really there is no kind of positive function, I guess, in terms of the bird community. So no, we don't have that helpful scent that we can follow around and try and pick up those infested trees like we did with emerald ash borer a decade ago.
It does kill the tree very rapidly, though, because I did see the one at Springwater, and originally they thought it was frost damage because oak are prone to that. They bud early, and then if you get a late frost, but our forester got right on it, and no, it was the what's it called again, the oak wilt, and unfortunately that tree had to be got very quickly. Yes, Councillor Snotch.
Yeah, thank you. You've explained the reason we don't want these species, but you haven't really explained what your company does to get rid of these species. So maybe you could just give us a very quick thing on what do you do to get rid of the oak wilt? Do you identify the tree, cut it down and burn it? And what do you do with the phragmites? Like, do you just have your crews go in and clean it out? What is it that you do that we couldn't do?
Support you. We don't do anything, sir. What we do is we are not for profit. First of all, we don't do landscape based response generally. We support municipalities by granting programs, moving resources from other levels of government like the province to support municipalities in doing themselves. Many of our applicants to the Invasive Species Action Fund, that granting program I mentioned, simply choose to contract it out. Many don't have the capacity or frankly interest in taking those kinds of services to be done in-house. So sometimes a great application to that fund would look like we just want to hire out some roadside vegetation control or hire out an arborist to remove that tree and grind that stump down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So with that, I've got a motion here that we receive the deputation from Invasive Species Center as presented. Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Tuyu. All in favor? Thank you, and thank you, Colin.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Fine if we keep rolling. Anybody need a break? Are we good to keep rolling? We're making decent time, so I'll go right into our consent agenda and recommendation that we receive and hang on. Okay, 9.1's been pulled separately as an addition. Is that the way you want to do it, Madam Clerk? All right, that we receive and support the SMDHU letter regarding income-based policy interventions to effectively reduce household food and insecurity. So that's a separate recommendation for 9.1. I'll do it first because it came first on my agenda. Any discussion on food insecurity? All in favor? Oh, I need to move by Councillor Tuyu, second by Councillor Fisher. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. That was a separate motion. So the rest, that items 9.2 to 9.5 of the consent agenda dated March 25th, 2024 be received as information. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Tuyu. Any items to be pulled for different or any questions then? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Reports of committees that we adopt. Committee of the Whole Report 0324 dated March 11, 2024 as presented. Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Tuyu. Any questions or comments arising from the committee? All in favor? That is carried. Next are the property standards, that the Property Standards Committee draft minutes dated March 12, 2024 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Fisher. Any questions or comments arising from the moment? Very old property that I've seen on our bylaw infractions for a while now. All in favor? That is carried. Next, that Lagoon City Parks and Waterways Commission minutes dated January 11th, 2024 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Bell, second by the Deputy Mayor. Questions arising from those minutes? Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. And now I have Lagoon City Parks and Waterways Commission minutes dated February 8th, 2024 be received as information. Moved by, again, Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Snutch. Questions arising? Seeing none. All in favor? All in favor again? Didn't see that is carried. Thank you. Longford Community Center, that the Longford Community Center Board minutes dated January 24th, 2024 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Tuyu, second by Councillor Fisher. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. And lastly, we have the Library Board minutes, that the Library Board minutes dated February 15th, 2024 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Bell, second by the Deputy Mayor. Questions from the Library Board? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next, I have items requiring immediate attention of council, which is to keeping the energy costs down. This was the letter from the WOWC, we call ourselves, which is the Western Wardens. What they're looking for, just to sum it up, is when there's gas projects going on, what triggers the next level is the $2 million threshold. And any projects over that, I think they need permission, one from the energy board to even proceed, and then they have to go. It's a very long drawn out process, and the $2 million has been in place for almost 20 years. I mean, they haven't upped it with inflation. You can't do anything for $2 million now. So we're trying to get the upper threshold moved to at least 10 million. It should be 20 million. That's what it is in BC, but to $10 million so that small projects, gas companies can just go ahead and do them without them being waylaid by the bureaucracy of having to get approval through the energy board for small projects. So that's what this endorses. So I was hoping that council too would also endorse this correspondence. So, Councillor Fisher,
Okay, so would you,
we did endorse it at county
yeah,
council.
so that's what I'm asking, since you're chairing, because you're mayor for our council meeting, you need a motion to
endorse this as well,
endorse
yeah.
this. Okay, I'd like to put that motion
Moved
on
by
the floor.
Councillor Fisher, second by the deputy mayor. Any other comments? All in favor? That is carried. We might have had our gas and bracket if it didn't have to go through this process. So that was items requiring immediate attention, unfinished or new business. We have none. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, apologies. Just back to the items requiring immediate attention.
Yes.
We also received a request from, the Ministry of Energy. So on April 8th and 9th, which I have the link, there's some committee hearings, and they're hoping that the townships they reach out to, which we're one of them because we've been requesting natural gas, they would attend that hearing and give the reason why natural gas would be beneficial to our community. So staff could work on preparing some comments for that meeting, but I'm also hoping to get somebody from council as well to speak at one of
Come
those.
speak. When is it?
April 8th and 9th are the
That's
dates.
coming up quickly. Councillor Fisher.
So I met with the minister at AMO and Roma last term, as well as this term, as well as I kind of cornered him when he was having dinner with his wife at one of the conventions that I was at as well, outside of any of the municipal conventions. So maybe we should change the motion to support as well as send staff and a member of council, and I'd like to be that member of council.
So do you have a motion for us, Jen, prepared? Because I know this came in last minute. I don't even have it on my agenda.
Yes, I believe we have a resolution which we received some support from the ministry on how to write the resolution, but we will have to probably add to send.
We would support the correspondence dated March 11th from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus regarding Keeping Energy Costs Down Act 2024, and that staff and council attend the meeting. What sort of meeting is it, Zach? Open house, or is it a
It's a committee meeting.
committee meeting 8th to 9th to provide comments?
Hearing.
Okay. So then who was the mover and seconder I had for the original motion?
Councillor Fisher and Deputy Mayor Bell.
Are you okay with that amendment? Okay, on that amendment, is all the council all in favor of that then? So then we'll tag that on to the original motion then, Madam Clerk, if that's okay. Okay, so we just ratified that. Thank you, Zach.
So do we need to decide what member of council?
Well, we have time when you get the report done, at least at our next committee meeting, when it's April 8th. That is going to be quickly. I'm just looking at my calendar here.
Yeah, it's less. It's about just over 2 weeks away. Sorry, 2 weeks exactly.
Well, that's our committee the whole day, so we'd be going down. Is that what you're hoping? Because
Well, we can do it the 8th or 9th, I believe. So we have 2 dates.
I won't be able to do it the 9th, but I can do it the 8th.
Yeah, I'll have to provide more details with the member that's going once I get a bit of more information on the exact times.
Yeah, is council okay with me going on that? Councillor Fisher, comment?
Yeah, I just had a question. So are you requesting that all of council come down for comment?
No, I just need a member.
To
Okay.
present, is that what you're assuming?
Yeah,
or-
to speak. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, again, I'd like to just throw my name in the hat there just for, because my portfolio is planning development and I have been in contacts in ambushes with the minister with regarding to natural gas.
So I'll put it to the council. How do you want to proceed? Then we send more than one? We can both go, I think.
I see no reason for the two of you not being able to attend
Yeah.
together.
Yep, we'll work it out.
So
Yep,
we'll put your names in the council
Yep.
resolution.
Perfect. Okay, If everybody's fine with that, then that is carried. All right, so then unfinished or new business, which we have none, but I do have county council update. And again, we are there tomorrow, so the update's here. So I have a motion that the county council highlights dated March 12, 2024 be received as information. Moved by the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Fisher. Any questions on the update? All in favor? That is carried. Announcements and inquiries, members of council. So we'll start Councillor Bell, right down the table.
Thank you. Just the announcement portion, I owe Josh an apology because I had a whole number of outstanding items on February 26th, and I'd received an email from a resident just that week saying the share roadway signs weren't there, but then they were. And I didn't go over and look right before that meeting. I was pretty prepared, but I didn't go over and look. So I want to apologize for that because I don't like to, it sounded like they weren't there, but they were. And then with that, I also want to just say thank you, which I did today personally, but I also like to say publicly because I don't think it happens often enough. The school bus signs have subsequently be placed as well. So residents are happy to see both those signs there, and that crossing is now very well marked. However, the temporary sign bylaw, when I asked about it in February, the message I received is that it would be on our March agenda, which it isn't, obviously. And over the course of this past week, we did have an agent from out of town come and place a large enough sign that you had no visibility to turn off of Laguna Parkway onto Simcoe Road. And that was there late afternoon. And by the time I returned home about 2 hours later, a resident had already gone and done his or her vigilante justice and taken it down and laid it on the ground with the rest of the sign beside it. So I'm just concerned to know when this is going to come, because this is just the beginning and I don't want to see 87 signs and numerous phone calls. So do we know when the sign bylaw is coming then?
Zach,
Yeah, I'll see if we have John on the line. Thanks, John.
with JT, whenever you're ready.
Yeah,
John.
good evening. The draft sign bylaw will be brought to the next committee of the whole meeting and hopefully ratified at the next council meeting after that.
Perfect. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Snutch, I think, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I'm going to pull it back.
All
So
right.
next.
Next, any others on announcements, inquiries? Councillor Bell,
I'm just wondering,
Deputy Mayor.
yeah, that's all right. Should I bring up, I want to bring up the letters I had regarding the kite surfing, but it might be under requests.
Might be under request, I think we go to that one.
What about the grant?
Inquiries, better bring that one up now. Yep.
Okay, let's bring it up now. So I did send that off to you, Zach and Ashley as well. So we do have a report that's coming back. I think we were just hoping, because that grant opportunity closed on April 26th for the sports opportunity. I think it's up to $5,000. I talked to Justine. She's doing the report. She kind of got an idea of what I was looking for. She's going to contact the schools about how many kids they had last year that were participating in flag football. I think it's too late for baseball this year, but I think that money would definitely pay for all of the equipment we'd need to actually get our flag football off the ground. So we're hoping that we'd see that back before the closing of that application deadline.
Okay, and it's for the end of April, I believe.
April 26th, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, we can apply. I guess should it be a motion, Jen?
What we'll do is Justine will prepare the report for the April 8th committee of the whole meeting.
Yeah.
Can review it and then we'll send it off.
Perfect.
Right, because council hasn't made a decision on it, so we've got to get it in front of us first. So
Exactly,
yeah.
And a timeline, we can approve something at the 8th before
Yep.
if need be, or ratify it at the next council meeting. if
Right.
there's time. Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor
So
Fisher.
just on that, can I request then, just so that we have all the information, I'm not trying to poo-poo anything, but when we set out our agenda in order, if we can have Justine's information before we make a decision on that.
Well, it'll be part of the recreation portfolio, sports and recreation. So if it's on a committee agenda, we'll address that at the time, then it gets ratified unless council determines if they want to ratify it prior to the next council meeting.
Now, that's on the 8th. What time were we supposed to present in front of the committee?
I'll have to get some more details. I'm not 100% sure what the timing is. They just told me the 8th and 9th. So I'll probably have to register and then I'll get a slot.
Find it.
I wanted to make sure that council wanted to speak at it first.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not an important day. It's only my 35th wedding anniversary that day, so I shouldn't just make sure it's not over dinner time or. it'll
Better be
my
at-
30 last. wedding
Better be a heck of a
reception.
speech that day.
Right. Okay, thank you. So that was announcements and inquiries, requests for reports from council members. Down the table, Deputy Mayor, yes.
Yeah, I have some requests inquiring if we can amend the bylaw for kite surfing at the public park in Lagoon City. So I wasn't here for the details. I'm not asking to rehash it now. I just was hoping that we get a staff report, look at it, review it, and then at the next committee of the whole.
Could we do it by the next, or do you need a little more time? JT? you still with
Yeah,
us?
that would,
Or the next. I understand you guys have
Okay.
a lot of deadlines
Okay.
already. That's fine. I just didn't want it to get missed as we're pushing the bylaws through this year.
yeah, I will say that sign bylaw is quite a large bylaw. When you
Alright.
think of, trucks and billboards, things like that. So if JT can, we'll have it at the 8th. If not, it'll be the following meeting.
That's fine.
Now, do we need a motion for that? Move? So let's have a motion to bring the bylaw back for review. Move by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor to you. This is just to bring it back for review. All in favor? That is carried. It will come to any opposed then? One opposed. Okay, thanks. Two opposed. Okay, so carried 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Just a review by the
So we're gonna, we do know what we went through last time, but new council members have a look at it. Notices of motion wasn't given any, so we're on the bills and bylaws. We did separate out, I believe the first one is it? Councillor Hughes, so we'll go to the original motion, which is the bills number 2024-14, 2024-15, 2024-16, 2024-17, 2024-18. You read a first, second, and third time, finally passed as bylaws, moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Snutch. Or do you have a concern with one?
This includes the one regarding the lighting, right? Property standards?
Yes. And which one is it? Street lighting, hang on, is yeah, 2024-16 is the,
Yeah, no, I guess that if we all agree, then there's no point of discussion. I just know that somebody was in the audience was listening for the discussion that we were having on
yeah,
it. But I mean, I guess there
we've
is
all
no
agreed to
discussion.
do the amendment to the bylaw, so that's what's being proposed. So on those bylaws, all in favor? And any, yeah, we already pulled the one out, so any opposed? So everybody's in favor of that bylaw, which does amend the street lights bylaw. All right, we had a big discussion on it at the committee the whole last week, but very little here. So now I have the bylaw to delegate certain powers and duties under the municipal act. So that's 2024-13. So the new motion will be. I'll let you comment on it, Councillor to you.
Oh, basically, I was hoping that Waleed could comment on it and just sort of explain a bit better what this bylaw actually means.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, Waleed.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair to Councillor to you. Delegating the removal of the hold to staff was an initiative that was brought through by Bill 23 in order to help expedite some applications, as it was found that it was a somewhat of a redundant process. When there's a holding symbol placed on the zoning of a property, in order for that holding symbol to be removed, the applicant has to meet the requirements of the official plan and the zoning bylaw in question and have a site plan agreement or a subdivision agreement registered for the development of that property. Meeting those requirements, the official plan and the zoning bylaw are public documents that are approved through council and the municipality. So when they adhere to all those requirements, they've kind of met the public process requirement. And they have to meet also the requirements of the Planning Act and all requirements of the Planning Act as well, and any other agencies that have been brought into it. So all the work has been done. When the application is brought to council, council will be extremely limited in what they could do at that point because everything's been met. Should council choose to reject the application, it would trigger an appeal at the OLT, which is highly unlikely that the municipality could succeed in that challenge because all the requirements have been met. So you'd have to wait up to 30 days to bring the application to council, and then we would have to wait to committee, and then we'd have to wait another 2 weeks. And all this time is really for not achieving any end goal. So having it delegated to staff, once they meet the requirements, we put the approval through. At the end of the month, we would report to council any site plan agreements or any subdivision agreements we've had registered for council information, and then keep the process moving.
Sorry, go
Thank
ahead.
you. Sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, I understand the reasoning for it, but I guess just given that there's so much development happening in Ward 3 right now, I really would prefer to not relinquish that kind of oversight. So I wouldn't support that bylaw at this time.
Councillor Snodge.
Yeah, I would support it if I didn't. If you could tell me how you're going to keep us all informed. I mean, you just said a minute ago then something would come out to council or the committee of the whole. I think you said that. Basically summarizing everything that you've approved.
Correct.
Because that's what I feel we're missing right now. Is the reason I would like to keep this intact is because it brings me more involved with what's going on. So, and I think in the past, have you always been you did remove a couple holds in the past, did you not, without bringing it to council?
No.
What about the one up on Ramara Corridor?
The Ramara, which
wasn't there a hold removed up there that
on the hotel?
I don't want to get into specifics, but
we did bring an application for, but we did bring it to council to get approved.
And it came to council to get approval, and then once we gave approval, it was approved.
Correct.
Yeah, I just find that there's so many, and I've mentioned this to Zach before, there seems to be so much going on in the planning and development side that I get asked questions all the time. And it's like, well, here's another 35 homes I didn't know about. And that's what I'm sort of trying to get my head around is when someone asks me a question, do I have all the answers? And I think this removes me farther away from the process.
I see.
I guess give us an example of what a hold would be, because that's part of the problem. See, you meet a subdivision, you might say, and it's on hold until they build a road to the satisfaction of the township. Well, once they do that, then according to their order of council, they're allowed to build. You said you can build once you do this. And so that's one of the things in Bill 23. They want to get rid of the 30-day delay. They've met the stipulations that have been put forward. And if council were to now deny the application, that's when we don't fare well in OLT, because we said you can go ahead. If you do this, you've done this, and now we're saying no. And that's where councils get themselves in trouble, because somebody may have spent a couple $100,000 on a water study that's required. You want to put in 5 homes, we need a water study to make sure there's enough water there. They do the study says there is, and then council turns it down. Well, guy just spent $100,000 and because you said he could go ahead.
And they do award costs
Yes.
for both sides. Like if the applicant is incorrect or if the council is incorrect, then the cost could be awarded. Not to mention the staff time brought forward. The main thing is that council is extremely limited in what they're able to do at that point because the approvals have been met.
Yes.
Also, we still have the ability, should we feel as staff that there's something that is challenging or that we cannot, maybe it's questionable, we still have the ability to bring it to council. It doesn't have to be all and end all with staff. We can bring it to council should we need to.
Well, and site plan approval is another one, but that's based on our bylaws.
On our
that
bylaws
they
and
must be
official
so
plan.
far up the street, they must have so many parking spots, that's all. And once they've shown a plan that they can do that, correct?
Then it's go ahead. Yeah.
Councillor Snodge.
Yeah, it's just the information. So basically the procedure right now is that you will wait until the next council meeting or committee of the whole to update us on any holds, just using an example that you've removed. Is there a way that we can get that information prior to waiting to the next council meeting, which could be a month sometimes, just so you remove a hold, let us know. I mean, I just want to know, because what happens is everyone's, well, that project's on hold, don't worry about it. The next day, someone's out there working in the field again, and then I make the phone inquiry and they say, oh, no, it's not on hold anymore. Oh, well, I just like to be informed.
If I may ask the clerk, is there a method for informing council not through a council meeting, like through memos or through? We could, as when we're in a position to remove the hold, we could notify council through other means that this hold is coming off and that before the next council meeting, that it's likely to be occurring, or it's in the final stages of maybe being removed.
Yeah, and it gives us one last chance to make a comment if there is, but I would support it, but I think it's the information that I feel I'm left in the dark on some of these issues that I would like to know.
We don't have a specific
Not
process.
that I would change it.
No, absolutely. We don't have a specific process on how we would address all this. It's just the idea now is that mechanism would be lifted, and I can work with the CAO in terms of getting that information to council at a time that's appropriate and meaningful to council.
That's fine with me.
That's a good point, because people say, yeah, they know it's on hold, and then all of a sudden it's going ahead. Well, yeah, when was the hold lifted? Well, when they did the study, right? At least we know what is also part of that email, the hold's been lifted, and what it was that it was on hold for, because it could be a file. We have some that are 10 years old, 20 years
More,
old.
yeah.
Yeah, more than 10 years old. So all of a sudden they start building. And, why was it on hold? Well, they had to do, again, might be a water study, might be a traffic study that they had to do, and now it's completed. Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out, not for one way or another, but anytime I've asked for Waleed, but I'm also planning chair. So when things change, like I am aware of things. Like I don't always know everything that goes on administratively or what's going on with roads or what's going on environmental. But like Waleed and I talk at least weekly to get all these updates. So it's, if I had something environmental that I didn't have the answer to, I'd send them over to Councillor Toohey. If I had something roads, I'd send it to Deputy Mayor, administrative, and go to the liaison for that, because they might have the information. Or if I had a resident reach out, even if they were in my ward, I would still forward them to the council liaison for that.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Toohey.
I just want to say that I do understand the reasoning behind it, and I appreciate that you still would have the discretion to be able to bring it before council. But I'm just not in support of delegating that power, and I would like it to be on record that I'm not voting for this.
So why don't we do a recorded vote?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion I have, if I get it correctly, Madam Clerk, is that 2024-13 be considered read a first, second, and third time and passed as bylaw. Moved by Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Fisher, and then I will look for a recorded vote.
Councillor Tuyu has requested a recorded vote. Councillor Tuyu,
Opposed.
Councillor Bell,
Support.
Mayor Clark,
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Bell,
In favor.
Councillor Snatch,
In favor.
Councillor Fisher.
In favor.
Carried, your worship.
Thank you. And the next bylaw I have is that the bylaw of the 2024-22, the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 25th day of March 2024 be considered read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Bell. All in favor? That is carried. And lastly, that we now adjourn at 8:22 p.m. until April 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Tuyu. All in favor? That is carried. I don't know if we have to vote on that one because